Calgary's real estate market just sent its first sign of real life in nearly 2 years, and most people are missing it. Now, overall, in January, sales were down, and inventory is higher than it's been in years, which is giving buyers more choice and more negotiating power. But I've seen signs of emerging life that give me hope that the market has bottomed. Because recently, a major Calgary developer had over 30 buyers walk away from their pre-construction contracts. And I know you're thinking, Kyle, that is not good news. But here's the silver lining. The developer is reselling those units at discounted prices below market value because they get to keep the buyers' deposits and, well, they can't carry 30 units over the long term. Now, what gets me excited about this is that they sold 15 units in a single week. This is a level of activity that we haven't seen in over 5 years. And that tells me demand is still there. Buyers are sitting on the sidelines waiting for value. But when prices make sense, they're moving fast. And in this situation, people are buying brand new units at 2020 prices. Developers literally can't build them at those prices today. So this situation won't last for much longer. Now let's take a close look at what the January 2026 numbers have to say. So first, taking a look at condos. In January, there were 203 units that were sold. That was a significant decline from previous months and really the lowest monthly total that we've seen in the last 5 years. Buyer hesitancy is at an all-time high. Whether it's interest rates or tariffs, economic sentiment, the buyer pool has really evaporated, and you can see that in this chart here. New listings, there were 787 new units that hit the market. And where you saw buyers pull back, sellers did the opposite, with listings more than doubling from December. Now, this is very seasonal. Very often, buyers will hold off until the new year or delist in December and then relist in the new year as well. So not really surprising and within the averages that we've seen in the last couple of years. Sales to new listings ratio, well, that dropped to 35%. This is not great. For context, anything under 40% is considered a buyer's market. And this really confirms the months of supply data. The market is absorbing only about 1/3 of the new product hitting the shelf. So this is something that we definitely want to see tick up in the spring market. Inventory, we've seen it go up to 1,435 units. This was actually a record high for January. The shelf is really filling up, so to speak, and the absorption rate is painfully slow, which is what's causing that inventory to continue to rise. And then looking at months of supply, it's now sitting at about 5.3, well above previous years. This is in buyer's market territory, so we want to see that drop like it did in 2021 to more reasonable levels. Days on market, that has increased as well to 65. So it's taking over 2 months for the average property to sell in the market today. And heading over to the benchmark price, we're coming off of highs of about 340,000 in the middle of 2024, now sitting just above 300,000. So that's a decline of nearly 15%. Prices did rise very significantly in the previous years, so we are seeing that pull back as we have record inventory currently hitting the market. Now moving to the Calgary townhome market. In January, we saw 186 sales. This is the lowest that we've seen in the last 5 years. And what this does is it starts to make comparables scarce. When sellers are trying to price their properties, they don't have recent sold units in their neighborhood, which can make pricing very difficult. And this might force listings to be on the market a little bit longer than they would have. New listings, that jumped up to 504, the highest that we've seen in the last couple of years. And while sales vanished, well, sellers are rushing to get their properties listed. Again, something that we've seen in the condo market as well, so not really surprising, not necessarily something to be concerned about. Sales to new listings, that was about 37%. So for about every 10 homes listed, 4 of those are selling. We want to see this start to go up like we've seen in previous years. Inventory sitting at 785 units. The highest that we've seen in over 5 years. Because sales to new listings, they're not selling, inventory is continuing to build. In months of supply, that's sitting at about 4.2. This now we're heading into buyer's market territory. So we want to see this drop like it did in 2021 to restore some balance to the market. Not surprisingly, days on market sitting at 52, so it's taking about 2 months for the average townhome to sell in the current market. The benchmark price that dropped a little bit to about 435,000. This is down from the peak that we saw at about 487,000 in 2024. What we're seeing here is price compression. The affordability premium, that drove up townhomes compared to detached, well, that's eroding a little bit. And we'll likely see a little bit more erosion over the next couple months if that inventory continues to build. And now the detached market. This is the most balanced housing market in Calgary. For the sales, there were 657 units. It's still the main number of units selling in the Calgary marketplace. So now heading over to the detached market. There were 657 sales, and detached houses still represent the greatest portion of housing sales in the Calgary market. So a bit lower than we've seen in previous years. That buyer pool has shrunk, and move-up buyers are really hesitant to trade in, the low interest rates that they might still be sitting on. So I expect lower transaction volumes to persist through quarter one, but hopefully it'll follow similar sales trajectories that we've seen in the previous years. New listings did increase to 1,243, but well within the averages that we've seen from the last couple of years. Sales to new listings ratio, you're sitting at about 53%, so about half of the units coming to market are now selling. And inventory, 1,753 units. It is higher than we've seen for the last couple of years, but not aggressively so. Let's hope that this doesn't continue to build too much. Months of supply is at 2.7. That is a very healthy level overall. And days on market, sitting at about 48. Higher than we've seen previous years, but taking about a month and a half for the average unit to sell. And now looking at the prices, we're sitting at around 725,000, and you've seen it pull back. There were two tops in early 2024 and then early 2025. We have seen it coming down with that price weakness. The detached market definitely not breaking, kind of bending a little bit, but I don't expect too much more weakness from here. So thank you so much for watching. If you found this video useful, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel.